So just a quick disclaimer, this video is not about brand new vehicles, but something that affects the life and the choices of millions and millions of people worldwide, and especially in the UK and in the US. So in a recent study, these were the findings. Buy now, pay later services are causing Americans to incur over $24 billion in debt. These services are particularly insidious because they make it easier for consumers to spend money they don't have, often leading to impulse purchases and lack of awareness about the actual cost of their spending. Even essential purchases like groceries and utilities are being financed through buy now, pay later services, which can exacerbate financial strain and lead to a cycle of debt. Buy now, pay later services have taken the retail world by storm, enticing customers with the promise of convenience and affordability. These short term financing options allow shoppers to make purchases and pay for them over time, often with no interest. So, this is the modern day world in which we live, where it is much more easier for us to spend than for us to earn. And with inflation and all the fluctuations in the economy and all that, it really makes it difficult for us to stick to our budgets and then go on to work towards the attainment of our financial goals. However, in this video, we'll be highlighting the key factors that you need to consider in order to avoid debt and then go on to save towards your end of year goals. Well, so people can also argue that, the $24 billion that you just spoke about was in relation to the US economy. What about the UK counterparts? Well, in the UK, the issue or the problem is no different. Over 22.6 million people in the UK use buy now, pay later. And we've seen debt, personal finance debt increase by 5% between 2020 and 2025. And of course, with inflation rising marginally by 0.5% from December 2024 to February 2025. And these conditions are the reason why there is a need for us to take a critical look at the use and, in my opinion, the abuse of buy now, pay later services in the economy. So without further ado, we just move to the first point, which is how do these things really affect our finances? So one, there are several buy now, pay later services out there that promise you convenience. And of course, they'll go on to spread, the payments over a time that would make it much more easier for you to pay. But what you do not know is that there are terms and conditions behind these payments. So the payment in installment is not just where everything ends. If you're to miss a payment, you incur additional costs for those missed payments. And it actually goes on to disrupt your finances and your budget and then throw you off course towards the accumulation of debt that might, in my opinion, may not necessarily be needed and might not be sustainable over the long run. Secondly, one of the key features about buy now, pay later that makes it much more enticing to customers or consumers is the fact that they preach to you that there are no interest on any payments that you make. However, in their terms and conditions, over time, if you're to miss a payment, you go on to pay that payment an additional cost. And then if you're not able to settle the entire debt, you go on to pay interest or accumulated interest on these unsettled debts. And that is where people are likely to find so much trouble, because it will drag you into a chain of series of payments that you might not be able to actually come up with. And eventually, interest will just be accumulated on these unsustainable debts that you're not able to settle within the stipulated time period. Lastly, one feature that really makes it even more enticing is the fact that they'll tell you that these purchases really do not go on to affect your credit score, your credit history. And that is one thing that we have all fallen victim to. It is much more easier to, purchase things knowing very well that it wouldn't in any way have any ramifications on your credit history or your credit ability and the economy. However, what you do not know is that these things actually has a huge cons as well, because eventually if you're going for something like a mortgage, because you've been able to purchase things through these buy now pay later schemes, it becomes very difficult for credit lenders to grant you a loan to secure essential items like a house and a car and all those basic necessities in life, because there is no credit history for them to fall back on. The only time that you might probably have a credit history check as a result of your buy now pay later checks is when you miss a payment or you go on to accumulate unsustainable debts, which are eventually ceded to hedge fund companies, and then those ones would eventually just come after you to take that money. So that is it. We might feel like that is an advantage, or I can purchase something and then eventually it wouldn't even affect my credit score. But what you want to do is that you want to build your credit score as well. And this is something that buy now, pay later doesn't really grant. So you might think about it. Anytime you're purchasing something, also think about your ability to build your credit and to have a credit history that would eventually help you, empower you to secure other essential purchases like your home or like a mortgage or a vehicle to go about your daily activities effectively in the future. So without any further delay, how can we go on to actually put our finances in order and then avoid these debts that may not in any way be sustainable? Firstly, you need to buy now and pay now. When you purchase with cash or with a debit card, it makes it easier for you to avoid all these interest and all these charges and costs that comes with you not being able to settle your debt over time. And that in a way liberates you. It gives you financial freedom in order to focus on your goals, stick to your budget in the long run, and then go on to hit your financial goals. Secondly, you can delay purchases and then think about them over time. So for example, when I wanted to purchase this particular microphone, I was using an old microphone before. I sat down to think about it for at least a week. I shot a couple of videos and then assessed them over a week, thinking and delaying my process in order to go on and make a new purchase. I wanted to be sure if this microphone was really needed. And in the long run, I really realized that it was something that was needed because it would add value to my content creation journey. But what I really did was that I delayed the purchase and I made sure that I was able to convince myself and I wasn't going out there to make an impulse purchase. If you know you don't have enough discipline, respectfully, to stick to your budget or to manage your finances altogether, then you might as well also stay away entirely or altogether from this buy now, pay later services, which might in a way eat into your finances and then make your debts even more unsustainable over the long run. Lastly, we've got to educate others on the ramifications or the impact of buy now, pay later, because it's much more easier to go out there, purchase things. It's spread over, a stipulated time, 4 or 5 equal installments. But what you should also know is that it comes with pros and cons. There are terms and conditions that apply to these purchases. And so anytime you go out there to make any purchases, you might as well just assess your finance and make sure that you stick to a budget. Try as much as possible and buy things that you can afford and avoid things that go out of your budget. And in my opinion, you would be able to instill discipline in yourself and go on to attain your financial goals at the end of the year. Thank you.